We have fewer voting rights than we did 50 years ago, greater inequality, more military spending, a disastrous environmental crisis. And all of this is tied together by distorted moral narratives and religious narratives that say terrible things about the poor and divide us from one another.
More than 140 million people in the U.S. were poor or low income in 2017, and nearly half the population are unable to afford a $400 emergency. COVID-19's disproportionate impact on the poor and racial minorities reveals the nation's deeply embedded inequalities. Colleen Wessel-McCoy says narrow moral framings contribute to this condition. She wants to change how we talk about our deepest values. In the last years of his life, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shifted his attention to the plight of the poor and launched the Poor People's Campaign. At the Kairos Center's Human Rights Defenders Forum in 2019, Wessel-McCoy spoke about how the Kairos Center is continuing King's efforts.
And so in 1968, King said that he was moving from a civil rights movement to build a human rights movement. And those around him called for that. And taking on the evils of poverty, racism, and war as inseparable from each other, and saw that it had to really be a human rights movement. Today we know that we have to add to that environmental devastation and talk about the distorted moral narrative that holds all of that in place.
The Kairos Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice at Union Theological Seminary provides leadership development training for the poor and seeks to change the narrative by changing the narrators.
By having people who are impacted by these issues be the ones who articulate the crisis and come and speak to office holders and share stories with each other about how you're not alone, breaking our isolation and coming together to build this campaign so that we can really strengthen a human rights movement in the United States. King talked in 1968 about the necessity of a moral revolution of values, and today we talk about moral revival again. And this includes people from all faith traditions and people of no faith tradition, that the moral values are deep and important.
The Kairos Center addresses human rights issues by engaging the faith community to raise religious and community leaders dedicated to building a movement to end poverty. They are co-conveners of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
And this launched on the 50th anniversary of the original Poor People's Campaign and is now in 40 states. And it has been bringing together thousands of people to take action together in their state capitals and to come to Washington, D.C. It's not easy to come together across partisan lines, and we really have tried to insist that this building this movement is not left or right, but right or wrong. It's about pulling people together around their deepest values.
Wessel-McCoy asks members of the religious and human rights communities to join their campaign to challenge the evils of systematic racism, poverty, the war economy, ecological devastation, and the nation's distorted morality.
There's many ways of tying in and bringing your gifts and talents into this work, meeting people that you've never met before and collaborating together, and being part of building a human rights movement in the United States.